I've loved my time here and I'm very thankful for it, so I appreciate it.
Move over tech layoffs because we got a new number one in the field of layoffs, and that is retail layoffs. Now, this is the new number one outside government mass layoffs, of course. And you guys may have heard of the thousands of retail stores closing across the nation, like JCPenney, Forever 21, Macy's, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and even Joann Fabrics. Now, in total this year, as of the end of May, 696,000 people have been laid off, of which 75,000 were in retail. So the question is this finally the death of consumer spending? And is the economy set to finally collapse, being that 70% of GDP is from consumer spending and government printing is at maximum capacity, meaning they can't do much bailing out anymore, you guys. It's not working. At the end of this video, we're going to talk about the skyrocketing prices of gold and silver and discuss whether or not these prices actually reflect a fraudulent and corrupt government taxing the people right out of their jobs and right out of their homes. And happy Tuesday. Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. You guys already know this video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Mitch Vexler, good morning to you, sir. How are you?
I think as part of this discussion, we'll end up getting into interest rates. And in reality, based on what Travis just said, if you heard it, listen carefully, because I'm going to make a statement that the interest rates simply don't matter. They could lower them 200 basis points, and we're going to destroy that theory in a few minutes.
I feel like we've been trying to destroy this theory for the last 3 years, Mitch, and explain to people, you want to know what matters? Price and median household income. Those two things in combination are things that create sustainability, right? Your income has to go up with your cost of living, then things are sustained. But when that goes out of whack, we got massive problems. And we see these problems, especially in retail. Retailers cut over 75,000 jobs from January to May. It's been a dicey year, it seems, for people who work in retail. And you guys are going to listen to some Americans that work in retail. They no longer want to work in retail because none of them can hold a job. The industry has cut nearly 76,000 jobs from January to May, according to new data from Challenger. Now, you guys, this is second only to Doge-related layoffs and is a 274% increase from retail job cuts last year. So that's a 274 year-over-year increase in retail. Again, it's in my opinion, and we'll talk more about this, that's a direct result of consumers being tapped out from both a saving standpoint, but also credit standpoint, because a lot of people have had overwhelming amounts of credit that they could charge. Andy Challenger said this is not a red flag. He's saying this is more of a yellow flag of all the different sectors, but he's also saying that retail is the most volatile one, at least this year. Now, Challenger's firm tracks job cuts through public announcements and financial filings, and he said the industry has a lot of brand turnover right now, some of which is normal. But again, 300% increase, that doesn't seem normal to me. We've seen quite a few retailers announce that they're going to be closing stores, again, like JCPenney's, Forever 21, Macy's, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. But other job cuts have nothing to do with store closures. Walmart recently announced plans to lay off 1,500 workers in technology operations and e-commerce. Those would be the primary spaces that, the customers wouldn't necessarily see. It's not what's in those stores. And those layoffs are signaling something bigger. Retailers are worried and are looking for places to slim down. And I bet you they're worried because, again, the consumers are tapped out. Clearly, this is them. We're in an environment where efficiency matters. But I would argue that efficiency has always mattered. And the fact that you have to reiterate it here makes me think you don't know what you're talking about. They matter because consumers are spending less. So if consumers were still spending what they have been spending, say, for the last 3 years, then according to this, efficiency doesn't matter. I wonder who proofreads what they're saying. 2025 isn't better, and so they'll actually have to do something about it. So they're saying the turmoil is at a point now where retailers are closing down like crazy. You've seen politicians be aggressive at pressuring retailers not to do that. And so if they don't do that, then they're going to get squeezed like a balloon. Before we go to Mitch, I want to listen to two videos of people that are in the retail space. This first lady, I think, has a good breakdown of exactly what's happening in the retail sector. She's been laid off twice in the last 12 months, and she's essentially saying she no longer wants to work in retail, so she has some stability in her life. Take a listen to this.
Really went into that Microsoft Teams meeting thinking that I was getting promoted, but I was actually getting laid off, which is crazy. 9 o'clock in the morning, they put a meeting on my calendar to meet my boss's boss's boss, who obviously I had never met before. And I was like, and my boss had been telling me like this whole time, oh my God, like you're doing so great. I had literally never gotten negative feedback ever. And like, obviously we all know like the state of retail right now, especially in America, is not great. But yeah, so, like I really thought I was getting promoted. I was like so ready. I joined the Microsoft Teams meeting and they added an HR lady in there. And I was like, this is weird. So then I was like, I literally joined the meeting and I wanted to make a good first impression. So I was like, hi, how are you guys? And this lady goes, hi, Bridget. And I was like, oh, okay. And then whatever, they were like restructuring, you know, we had to do a layoff and your position is being eliminated. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So this actually just happened to me less than 12 months ago. Same time last year with a different company. I'm going to figure out what I want to do. Obviously, I really don't want to go back into the retail space because it's only going to get worse from here because of all the tariffs and everything. So we're going to be trying out TikTok. I'm going to be on here a lot.
And then one more video of another lady in retail that got bamboozled because she just like we heard, got a promotion. So this lady you're about to listen to got promoted to be laid off. It makes absolutely no sense.
So I was just terminated from my job. About 2 days to process everything. I've never been terminated/fired before. This is the first time ever. It came off as a surprise, as a huge shock to me, because due to my recent performance review and my bonus and my salary increase, I wasn't really expecting to be terminated. But what an awful experience it is. What a feeling, like you feel so worthless, like just brings you down so much. I don't know. We'll see what the future brings for me, but if you're going through a similar thing, don't worry, good days are coming for us, and I'm sure the universe has our back, and better and greater things are coming our way.
Mitch, we just listened to a couple Americans, and we've listened to them in the past as well. This time in retail, they get promoted, and then they get laid off a month later. It seems like there's a sudden surge of retail layoffs. Last year it was tech. A lot of people think that this is tariffs. Maybe it's a little bit tariffs. Maybe the tariffs would explain the sudden surge, but maybe it's not the tariffs, Mitch. Maybe it's just a result of all the quantitative tightening and the fact, again, that consumers just can't afford to live like this anymore. But can you explain that? Can you articulate why retail job cuts are leading job cuts in 2025 and not tech? Because remember, I think the last 2 years, tech layoffs have actually been leading, and that's not the case anymore. Why is that, do you think?
It's a combination of a couple factors, but I want to start off with the interest rates, in that this idea that the Federal Reserve is going to lower interest and this is going to help is complete nonsense. Interest rates don't matter when mom and pop are dancing on a razor blade of survival. This, combined with the flood of cheaper goods not manufactured in the home country, destroys jobs. The United States should have its manufacturing here. Italy should have its manufacturing in Italy. Canada should have its manufacturing. These are home countries that have all subbed out and their culture is now manufacturing cheaper goods across the globe. And those cheaper goods have a real cost. Again, everything's got a cost associated with it. And I'm going to try and put the dots together here. So I use the word survival. Survival is the only thing that matters is the median household income, which is being equity stripped by the central appraisal district and the fraudulent school district bond debt. Okay, so mom and pop only have so much money to spend. And once that median household income is tapped out, which is where we are, well, there's no money left to spend it on retail goods. So coming back to this issue on the interest rates, the difference between a 7.5% interest rate and a 5.5% interest rate is completely meaningless. You say, well, it's 200 basis points. That's not meaningless. No, it's meaningless because the crimes committed by the central appraisal districts equity strip that savings. They will literally take it right out of your account. So let's put some math to it. That's $4,000 a year in interest, the difference between 7.5 and 5.5, 2%. 2% times 200,000 is $4,000. The CADs can literally take that money from you. You think that that's your savings, but they overvalue the property and they suck that savings right away from you. So mom and pop's median household income hasn't moved. In fact, it's actually decreased because your purchasing power is decreasing. Therefore, mom and pop are dancing on a razor blade of survival. And this is exactly why the retail, so many of them are shutting down. The money to be spent does not exist.
Let me get your opinion on this, Mitch. So, I mean, you and I have heard hundreds of people, I mean, emails, phone calls, these TikTok videos, going to the grocery store, just out in public. Some people are already tapped out. That's a fact. We see it in the numbers, the delinquents. I mean, there's millions of people that are already tapped out right now. But my question is do you think 2025 is going to be the year where mom and pop's balance sheet just gives out? We just give out this year? I mean, last year we were close. The year before that we were close, but there was still enough people in the nation that could support this fraud that's going on.
The shifting of the liability burden is going to cause the compound effect of those who can't pay their taxes or pay the retail bill to go and buy clothes or what have you. Shifting, which is in essence what has happened in Texas, where they say, well, a certain population, say 65 and older, as of 2025, can no longer be obligated to pay their real estate tax. Well, that shifts the burden to the remaining people. That's the first thing. The second thing is we've quantified right now today, you've got over 37% of the household population, owners of the houses across the United States can't afford those houses. If that population disintegrates, you're shifting the burden to the remaining people. If you shift the burden, you increase the speed as to when the event is going to occur. That's on one hand. On the other hand, lowering the interest rates may actually have the opposite effect. I'm not in either camp, but you can create a panic pretty quick. The Federal Reserve can, by saying, we're going to lower the interest rates because if we don't, we, the US government, are going to default on our debt. Well, I got news for you. De facto, you've already defaulted. Right? When you go to print money and it's not backed by assets, that's a de facto default. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, that's their problem. But that explains exactly why gold and silver are running. Nobody believes this crap that understands what's going on.
You know, it's interesting. Speaking of panic, I feel like, you know, last year there was more panic over the drones. In other words, the media could create a panic overnight. They could just go fly some drones in New Jersey and act like it's not theirs, and they create a panic. And it's really shocking to me that with all of the stuff that's going on across the world, the assassinations, the war, you know, the protests, people paid more attention to some drones. Mitch, is this the death of retail? I mean, seriously, and I know I was going to ask you this a little later, and I'm going to get into this next article right here, but, you know, there's permanent damage being done. And not only is there permanent damage being done, like mom and pop, private businesses, we can't even afford to operate. But then you also have Amazons. You have the Amazons across the world that is essentially centralizing, like the Federal Reserve, centralizing retail. So Amazon is like the Federal Reserve of retail. Do you think that retail is going to be able to survive through through the turmoil that we're going through right now?
If you go all the way back to Tehran, Islamabad, Israel, 5,000 years ago, they had retail. It's not going away. It's really about social being, right? If you want to go to a store and interact with the owner of that store and that store has goods that you want, that's why I keep saying it's all local. Go and spend your money locally. There's no reason in reality to go to Amazon unless it's just something you simply can't get locally. You know, even if you say, okay, I need a battery for a computer, well, okay, so go to Best Buy. It's not the best choice on the planet, but it's neighborly, it's there, and it beats the hell out of going to Amazon. So you're interacting with people. You're really in the hospitality business. Retail is just a different form of hospitality. So no, it's not going away. Is it going to be severely damaged based on the fact that the goods are not manufactured, or a lot of the goods not manufactured in the United States? Yes, it is severely damaged. Will it get worse? Yes. Will a lot of these businesses end up being destroyed because of the real estate tax? Yeah. Yes. It's all connected. Eventually, all these things are going to change. Something will happen, be it a greater depression. It's going to straighten out these governments one way or the other, because that's who's allowing this to happen. This is unconscionable. It should never have happened. They've printed money to cover up the sins of the debt that they created.
You know, I agree with you. We should support local community, right? Don't shop at Amazon when your neighbor is in business for themselves. Support your community. But Mitch, I worry that we can't ask bankrupt citizens to pay extra anymore. That these bankrupt citizens, like you were saying in the beginning, it's about survival right now. It's not about supporting the community when they can barely support themselves. Aren't you worried that citizens we don't have what it takes anymore to support our childhood stores? I mean, look at all the store. Is Chuck E. Cheese going to go out of business next? You remember Chuck? I love Chuck E. Cheese. Red Lobster. I mean, I'm wondering if any of my childhood stores, Party City, any of these companies are going to be around 10 years from now. I just don't see how our culture survives this.
The answer to the question is repeal the real estate tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax and restore the balance sheet to mom and pop. Give them back their balance sheet, let them own the house that they occupy from which they have something to retire on, and this problem inverts immediately. All this nonsense goes away. The Federal Reserve saying, well, we have to protect the balance sheet of the United States government. You have already blown it. You've destroyed it. And in the process, you destroyed mom and pop's balance sheet by equity stripping their value out of their house. Restore the balance sheet, and the simple way to do it, repeal all real estate taxes as is required under the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits tax on an unrealized gain. And an unrealized gain is the market value from which the CADs and the school districts are equity stripping mom and pop's money. It's real simple. You want to put money back in a mom and pop's pocket? Repeal the real estate tax. This thing will flip on a dime.
Mitch, it's not just people's homes. You know, we talk a lot about people's homes, but you know, this is a good segue. Yeah, that's a good segue into retail, because it's the property taxes really adversely, like, we're getting hit with our homes. Let's make no mistake about that, especially senior citizens, single parents, anyone that is struggling right now. We're getting hit hard, being pushed out of our houses. But also, the people that have businesses, the property taxes, the way that they calculate property taxes and assessment value for commercial property is absolutely psychopath. There's literally no math and no legal grounds to increase the value the way they're doing it. So as an example, say Joann Fabrics, had a store 3 years ago. 3 years goes by, their property tax goes up 100%. If the property taxes go up 100%, that means their expenses go up. And as a result of those increased expenses, predominantly made by local municipalities and the Federal Reserve, as a result of that, they have no choice but to close their stores down or, and there's a big or, pass that expense to you. So even if you're a renter, you're still paying property taxes in the form of living your life in that community, because that community functions together and everyone is being taxed unequally, fraudulently, together. And so again, Mitch, I'm so worried about this. And I say culture because the fraud is so systemically intertwined into our everyday lives. It's absolutely shocking. I used to think it was just homes are overvalued. Right. Oh, and I hate the stock market. But now that I've gone down so far this rabbit hole, I see that if home prices and when home prices go down even more than they already have on a nationwide level, it's going to be a complete collapse of the financial system because of how leveraged up our homes are. So I think that, can't we say that retail layoffs, like tech layoffs, we got it right. AI, there's a lot of money printing. There was a lot of push for AI, right? But can't we say that retail, that is a direct red flag for the U.S. economy more than any other niche?
Yes, because it's immediately apparent, as is the fact that mom and pop are simply out of money. Socialism fails when you run out of other people's money. And in truth, the US government, by virtue of printing money, they're running a socialist economy. That's what they have been doing. They're now out. They have equity stripped. When you have $5.1 trillion across the United States in outstanding fraudulent school district bond debt, and those that sanctioned it and allowed it to occur are still not in jail, which is exactly where they should be. Well, you've got a problem. You're sanctioning the socialism. You are sanctioning the equity stripping of mom and pop. These bonds are never, and I mean never, underline it, bold text, never going to be paid off. There is no money to pay them off. Let those who hold the bonds, who didn't do their own due diligence to see where that money was coming from, let them lose. They will lose. But you should not put this on the back of those people, mom and pop, and think that they're going to have the money. They don't have it.
Right.
37% of the household population is bankrupt. We're going to lose the roof over their head today. It doesn't take but another 30 days. And that's why you've got thousands of people per month, tens of thousands, losing their homes across the United States due to these tax liens, right? Again, those who sanction this, those central appraisal districts, those politicians who allowed this to happen, chief appraisers, they belong in jail. School superintendents, they belong in jail. Accounting fraud. On both instances, they violated their own licensing requirements. This is serious stuff. That's why we filed the criminal complaints. We've got it. We've got the evidence. We're handing it to the world. Say, listen, this is what they've done. Here's the math. Here's who did it. Here's how they did it.
Yes.
It's up to them to say, okay, fine, we're going to prosecute these cases. It's up to mom and pop at some point to say, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. All property tax ceases. If it has to be done, then it has to be done, right? The simple solution is not to repeal the tax. You repeal the real estate tax in favor of the uniform states sales tax. That's where the money is. That's how you put the balance sheet back in mom and pop's hands. That's how you put retail back in business. Stop stealing.
Yeah.
Real simple solution.
Yep. I mean, retail is supposed to flourish within communities, right? So localized communities, localized property taxes. I'm going to tell you, Mitch, I don't know what happened in 2018. I was just thinking about, like, man, 2018 was such a great time compared to where we're at right now. And then I'm like, wait, how long ago was that? I was like, 7 years ago? We've been going through this for almost 7 years. And 2019, I saw Turmoil starting in 2019, and I started rebudgeting, and I had no idea that we were going to be locked down, of course. But Mitch, my God, I remember the markets of 2018. Those were good times. I want to go into one more article, though, before we get into gold and before we get into silver. Joanne Macy's other store closures, part of a 274% spike in retail layoffs in 2025. Employers have announced approximately, and we went over this, 696,000 job cuts through May. And again, you guys, of which 75,000 were retail. Now, they're saying the reason for this is tariffs was number one. Funding cuts, consumer spending, and overall economic pessimism are putting intense pressures on companies. No mention about property taxes, no mention about the Federal Reserve or inflation. Literally, there's no word inflation in here at all. I find that crazy. Efforts initiated by the Department of Government Efficiency are the leading reason for job cut announcements in 2025, according to the report. That includes federal government jobs, contractors, and private nonprofit layoffs prompted by federal funding cuts and terminated contracts. The report also cited economic and market conditions as a reason for increased layoffs. Additionally, the report said that retail job cuts closed in on 76,000 for the year, marking the second highest industry for job cuts behind the federal government, and accounted for a whopping 274% increase over 2024. Store closures contributed to job losses, with some retailers closing locations amid economic pressures and others forced to file for bankruptcy and shut down operations entirely. I mean, we can go into private equity and private credit and explain what's really going on here, but let's go into a TikTok video instead.
Off maybe a month ago, and I've been applying to jobs. I've applied to like 20 or 25 jobs since then. I have not received one interview request, not one. I haven't received an email from a real person. And I'm just like, what's going on? The resume is updated. The LinkedIn is updated. I've even some jobs I've gotten like internal referrals from people I used to work with that are at these companies that are like, oh, I'll refer you to this open position, no problem. Done that. All of these things. Crickets. I'm just like, what's going on? Well, and I knew it would take a while. I didn't think I would like have a new position immediately, but the lack of interest is blowing me. I'm like, I thought y'all would at least want to know more. No. Like, how does your self-esteem take these hits? Because I'm starting to think it's me.
Mitch, you got your hand to the pulse of how to get a job, how to make money, and how to do well. Can you talk about maybe what some of these people could be doing differently to actually get a job? She's been saying she's been looking. We've heard many other people saying they've been looking. They can't find anything. And I also want to point out that sometimes, obviously, being self-employed is good. We probably say be self-employed, use your skills, right? But also we have to remember that someone can't just be self-employed. Sometimes they need some seed money. And if someone's broke and just lost their job, we can't tell them necessarily to be self-employed. Plus, there's a run-up period. It takes time to generate money often for being self-employed. So can you give these people some tips on how to get a job, call their employer, show up, dress nice? Can you start talking to some of these people that don't understand what it takes?
It's complicated only because everybody is in a different position in life. They have different economic strata. Some people have a little bit of money sitting on the side necessary to survive for an extended period of time. So let's just say that somebody has been a few months looking for a job. One must look at the area that they're in to begin with. So I think if you sit down and you come up with a plan, is the area that you even live in worth staying in? And economies get destroyed, again, by virtue of governments. There's a book out called The Ruins of Detroit. Well, Detroit in its heyday had over 1.5 million people. Right now, today is about 580,000. Is it worth staying? There are those who are now trying to bring it back. Will it ever be back in terms of that sheer size of population? Probably not. So one would have to look at that local economy and say, should I even stay here? And then if the answer is no, then you've got to come up with a plan on how to leave that area and go to a place that has jobs, or start looking for the jobs to begin with in that other area that you're thinking about. So again, it's very difficult to position everybody in the same bucket because nobody is in the same bucket.
Yeah.
But coming up with a plan, that's job one.
Let's talk about gold and silver, whether or not these skyrocketing prices really reflect a government that is frauding its people. Gold passes euro as second largest global asset, according to the ECB. Now, that is astonishing to me, you guys. So 46% of reserves is the US dollar. That makes sense. But 20% of reserves are gold? Did you guys know that other currency is 18%? Euro is 16%. So it's 4% higher than the euro. That's wild to me. And look at this, you guys. Silver is finally soaring. Here's why. If you guys want to read these articles in their entirety, just go back to Zero Hedge. You can read this whole thing, but I'm just doing a couple bullet points here. Notable outperformance of silver and gold today sends silver to 2025 highs, while gold stockpiling at COMEX vaults ended 2 months ago and reversed. Silver COMEX inventories are at all-time highs. Normally, Mitch, I would ask you a question that would point to the fact that gold has outperformed. Listen, guys, okay, over 10 years, the last decade, gold has outperformed almost every single asset. In fact, I believe the only asset investment that has outperformed gold is cryptocurrency. The S&P, Dow, 401ks, pensions, they got smoked, you guys. A mindless rock beat the entire market. So normally I would ask that question, but today I want to ask you this, Mitch. How do these trends in metals, right, these skyrocketing prices in metals, point to a corrupt government?
Corrupt / fear of the unknown due to the corruption. Everything we've been talking about with regard to the real estate tax, the interest rates being set by the Federal Reserve, the printing of the money by the Federal Reserve, the bond fraud at the hands of the school districts. All of these things are connected because it costs mom and pop money. It takes money from their bank accounts. And if the income, median household income, which is what I keep saying is the only thing that matters, nothing else, all the other indicators, all this other nonsense being spouted, it doesn't matter. You cannot, and nobody can, get blood out of a stone. Now, the Federal Reserve has figured out a way by virtue of printing money, but that further compounds the problem. When you print the money and think that it's going to get paid off, you still can't get the blood out of the stone from mom and pop because the median household income didn't increase. So the net result is that currencies devalue. And to be clear, we're not the only country on the planet that has this problem. The Federal Reserve promoted its desire to maintain banks on the globe that have no business surviving. In exchange for them to have a job at the Federal Reserve, well, they equity strip mom and pop's money. How are they doing it? Well, they're printing money. You print money, that devalues your currency, that causes your purchasing power to go down. So you've got the Federal Reserve on one hand, and on the other hand, you have the central appraisal districts doing the exact same thing. Either way, it's fraud. If you print money, that's called counterfeiting. And that ends up equity stripping mom and pop. At the central appraisal districts, they overvalue your property, and by virtue of overvaluation, they overtax. What we figured out is that in the last 5 to 7 years, give or take, 21 trillion worth of overvaluation has been committed on the real estate tax side, from which in 2023 alone, they stole 450 billion from property owners. So you've got the mirror image. On one hand, the Federal Reserve, on the other hand, the central appraisal districts, which are owned by the school districts. So when you realize what's going on, the net result is there is no money to pay for these crimes. And that is why your purchasing power is falling apart. That is why the retailers are going bankrupt at 90 miles an hour. They can't take the heat. There simply is no money to keep those doors open. So this is all the ramification of fraud. No matter how you slice it, that is exactly what this is. And the only way to restore it is what I've been pounding the table on. I mean, we've thought it through. We provided the numbers. It's on our website. Everything we've said is there. You must repeal the real estate tax in favor of the uniform states sales tax. Nobody's saying get rid of taxes. What we are saying is get rid of the idiots in the middle that are causing the fraud, right? When you've got that task accomplished, you've got billions just on a local community, billions in savings by getting rid of the idiots.
I know. It's become so clear to me, Mitch. And just one question before we end this out. Is gold, is that overvalued?
No, not even close. Okay. No, it's been artificially held down. See, people want to go in, ideally, mom and pop should be investing in, and they should have been investing for the last 10, 15 years. Just little nibbles here and there.
Right.
But the point of the matter is what you're seeing now, what I'm saying is not unknown to large institutions. They know exactly what's going on. And that means that they're out. They're the ones that are moving the market now. They're saying, yeah, okay, we're going to buy $1 billion here and $1 billion there. And so they're taking really big bites, and that is what pushes the market up. So they play the futures market, and that's what you and I see and everybody else sees on a daily basis in gold and silver, because they're using those futures, or they're using the options on the futures, not so much to hedge the position, but now they're actually taking delivery, which is quite the topic a few weeks ago. So they're saying, okay, fine, we'll sell a put on gold, and if we get hit, hallelujah, we now have physical possession. So either way, because of the amount of money they have, they win. Having the physical is the only way. There is no other way to hedge it. You can be a trader and say, okay, fine, I'll make money intraday, but
Right.
most people can't do that.
And when the market does correct, just to the viewers now, and I've talked recently a lot actually to Mitch about this, when the market corrects, we will teach you guys, especially with Mitch spearheading it, we will teach you guys how to play the market to make money. I really appreciate you guys following along. I really enjoyed this discussion. Let us know whether or not you guys enjoy this discussion as well, and whether or not you learned anything. Comment below. We always love hearing from you. Maybe give some advice to the TikTok videos and those people you just heard. What would you do if you're out there looking for a job, discouraged, you wanted to give up? Give them some advice, you guys. Comment below. And other than that, if you guys are out there investing in yourselves, you guys already know we wish you luck, and we hope you win.